Hakeem, Jeffries, and the Democrats are fuming from the latest polling that even the liberal media couldn't spin in their favor. Despite the government shutdown and weeks of Democrats like Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and AOC blaming Republicans, Donald Trump's approval rating has actually gone up. This shutdown has never been about Democrats doing what's best for the American people. It's been about self-preservation. It's about Democrats like Jeffries, like Chuck Schumer, who see themselves losing control, now pandering to the far left of their own party. And they're so determined to score points against Republicans that they're willing to roll the dice and apparently take food off the table of families who receive food stamp benefits.
I think that the work that's happening in Washington right now is directly hurting communities.
SNAP benefits for nearly 2 million Pennsylvanians are now frozen due to the ongoing government shutdown. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program helps provide food benefits to low-income families. So KDKA's Erica Stanish reports when Pennsylvanians will start to feel the effects from the shutdown and what you can do if you need assistance.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture announcing on October 10th an order to all state directors of SNAP to hold on filing November benefits until further notice, warning there will be insufficient funds to pay if the government shutdown continues. Fast forward to 1 week later, the Department of Human Services issued this statement saying, quote, because Republicans in Washington, D.C. failed to pass a federal budget causing the federal government shutdown, November 2025 SNAP benefits cannot be paid, end quote.
And that's exactly why Democrats have been perfectly fine with letting this shutdown drag on. You've got agencies like the Department of Human Services in Pennsylvania, an organization that's supposed to operate without political bias, sending out messages to residents saying, you're not getting your food stamps. Oh, and it's the Republicans' fault. These are the tactics that keep people trapped in the same cycle of poverty and dependency, especially in liberal strongholds like Pittsburgh, like Philadelphia, where voters are told to stay angry, stay afraid, and keep voting Democrat, even though nothing ever changes. Democrats desperately want the American people to blame Trump for this shutdown. That's been their entire strategy, and hope the public turns against them. But there seems to be one problem. It's not really working. Even CNN is being forced to admit that he's actually winning. And that's a massive shift from the shutdown that happened during his first term as commander-in-chief. This time, the script has flipped. As the more Democrats attempt to try and manufacture outrage, the stronger Trump's position becomes.
Costs and new concerns as the government shutdown drags on. A big question for the American people is when it will end. A big political question is, who is getting blamed? CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton is here. And when we're talking about blame in President Trump, different this time than when he was president the first time around with the shutdown.
That's exactly right. Turns out shutdowns are different the second time around when it comes to Donald Trump. Take a look here. You know, we speak about Donald Trump shutdowns, net approval rating. We're talking 20 days into it. In 2018/2019, Donald Trump's net approval rating was already falling. The shutdown was eating into his popular support. It was down 3 points already at this particular point and would fall considerably more. It was very much on the decline. You come over to this side of the screen, this shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support. So the bottom line is this. The first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018-2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support, I want to get out of this shutdown.
Have you ever had a moment that changed your life? One accident, one employer who doesn't care, one hospital bill you couldn't pay. That's how quick life can change. And when it does, you realize something fast. The big companies, the insurance giants, they don't care about you. They've got teams of lawyers whose only job is to protect their bottom line. But who's protecting you? There's a reason why it feels like traffic always jams when you're running late. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has fought for the people, not the powerful. With 1,000 plus attorneys and more than 100 offices nationwide, they've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients just like you. Whether you're a 41-year-old family man in Florida, struck by a driver who ran a red light, Morgan & Morgan secured a $9.3 million verdict. Or a father and Little League coach who suffered lasting injuries in a car crash, Morgan & Morgan secured a $6.1 million verdict. When you hire them, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. Starting a claim is simple. You can get started right now from your phone. No hassle. You can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to see if you have a claim. Their fee is free unless they win. Because when life changes in an instant, you deserve a law firm that's ready to fight for you. This is another major setback for Democrats, a party that has weaponized this shutdown, disguising it as a fight for the people, when in reality it's a fight for control. And so these numbers don't help. The illusion is cracking because it is a direct threat to their agenda.
What about the question of blame?
Yeah, okay, what about the question of blame? Okay, you see Donald Trump's net approval rating was down 2018 to 2019. You talk about 2025 as net approval rating is up. It comes down to the blame game, a game I loved to play when I was younger. Blame Trump for the shutdown a great deal. In 2018/2019, 61%, more than 3 in 5 Americans blame Trump a great deal for that particular shutdown. You come over to this side of the screen, look at this. It's a different world. It's a different world. 48% of Americans blame Trump a great deal for this particular shutdown. So it's more than 3 in 5 back in 2018/2019. It's less than half, a drop of 13 points. Again, it's no real wonder that Donald Trump at this point, looking at the shutdown, says, you know what, it's not actually harming me politically, in large part because he's getting less of the blame.
And he's doing things differently during this shutdown.
The landscape has changed. The way people consume information has completely changed, even from a few years ago. And you can't help but wonder that maybe some Americans are looking back at what the president was asking for back then. Funding to secure the border to build the wall wasn't about politics as much as it was about prevention. Because who knows, if more people would have stood with him on that issue then, maybe we wouldn't be dealing with the fallout we're seeing now from the last administration. The record illegal crossings, the strain on cities, and the national security concerns. It's something to think about. And what keeps coming up over and over and over again with this government shutdown is something that even the mainstream media is starting to point out. You got a long list of Democrats who've gone on the record saying you just can't shut the government down. But now those same voices are backtracking, trying to justify the very thing they used to call reckless and irresponsible. And the receipts don't lie. Here's Senator Tim Kaine being confronted with that very question. And watch closely how he tries to spin it.
You know, Senator, back in 2019, you made a similar argument during that shutdown that Republicans are making now. Republicans at the time were asking for more funding for a border wall. You said, let's reopen the government first. I want to play a little bit of what you had to say.
We first should reopen government. Why punish people who are applying for food stamps because the president is having a temper tantrum? Open government first.
So, Senator, by your own logic, should Democrats not vote to reopen the government first and negotiate later?
Kristen, here's what's different now. The president told the Republicans to write this budget without any Democratic involvement.
Democrats are still bitter about losing and even more frustrated that the president is actually doing what he said he would do. And now they're grasping for anything that can create chaos, hoping to derail his momentum heading into the 2026 midterms. They know what's at stake, the possibility that they won't regain control of the House if this trend continues. While in the meantime, it's not the politicians who are paying the price, it's federal workers and their families. I mean, here's The View, of all places, calling out Democrats and Bernie Sanders. Take a listen.
It would be powerful, though, is if Congress didn't take their money while they were waiting. Because right now, it's hard to imagine it's incentivized. It's easier for the politicians in D.C. to go away from each other and say, we will win this way, while people are losing their paychecks. If Congress just said, we're not going to take our paychecks till we figure this out, that would be a noble step in the right direction, I would say.
That's not everybody can afford to do. You got some young people there with kids there.
Either can the people that aren't getting paid, though.
I think that's a fair
holdout.
point. I think that's a fair point.
Isn't that ironic? Bernie Sanders, of all people, out here lecturing about how members of Congress have families to take care of and can't afford to miss a paycheck, while he's literally supporting a shutdown that's withholding paychecks from federal workers across the country. Give me a break. You can't claim to stand for the working class while you're the one stopping the checks that those federal workers, government employees, depend on for survival. Bernie Sanders cares more about his fellow party members than he does about federal employees. But it's not just Bernie Sanders. Hakeem Jeffries is more concerned with saving his own political skin by pandering to the far left of his party than he is with reopening the government.
What Senator Thune is offering there is to have a vote on a Democratic or bipartisan plan to extend those subsidies so people's premiums don't go up, as they will now dramatically in January, if the Democrats simply agree to vote to have that temporary funding extension. Is that something you would be willing to agree with? You get your vote on health care, but you also reopen the government.
I think what we've said is that we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill, which is the bill that they continue to bring before the Senate and that emerged from the House, if that bill guts the health care of the American people.
Democrats keep on talking as if they're negotiating from a position of power, as if they have the leverage, but they don't. They've tried convincing the American people, oh, this isn't our fault, that somehow they're the victims in this shutdown that they've created. But as we've seen, the narrative isn't landing. The public isn't buying it. The leverage they thought they had never existed. And at this point, Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats should be thanking their lucky stars if Republicans offer them anything at all.
On the other side, Democrats can't even agree amongst themselves. You got different subgroups among them. You've got a few reasonable Democrats who know shutdowns hurt the people, and they've already voted for our bill. They want to keep the government open. Then you've got others desperate to prop up the failures of Obamacare with no reforms whatsoever to make the program more affordable. That's what we're fighting for. And you've got AOC calling for her own negotiations on live TV. And you've got Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries still unable to articulate what it is they need to reopen the government. It illustrates the point once again. This was never about a solution. It was about creating an issue. Now that Democrats have had their protest and publicity stunts, I just pray that they come to their senses and end this shutdown and reopen the government this week. Republicans are waiting. The American people are waiting, and we are ready to act.
It's day 20 of the government shutdown. Join us now, National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. It's good to see you, Kevin. Good morning. This, give me the blueprint of how you think this ends. I don't think it's that difficult for you, maybe, to go out on a limb here. Do you think the president gets involved and gives the Democrats some type of assurance for these Obamacare subsidies, or do you think he takes a hard line? And you mentioned over the weekend that some extreme measures are possible about firing people, taking away things that are important to Democrats. What do you think really happened?
Right. Well, first of all, the president has been very active throughout this process, but it's also his position that this is a thing that the Senate needs to work out. A lot of our friends in the Senate have said that it was just bad optics for Democrats to open the government before the No Kings rally, and that now there's a shot that this week things will come together and very quickly the moderate Democrats will move forward and get us an open government, at which point we could negotiate whatever policies they want to negotiate with regular order. Now, I was very pleased to see that my friend Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire, a very sound-minded Democrat, came out and supported opening the government on Friday. So it means that there's sort of cracks in the Schumer armor. I think the Schumer shutdown is likely to end sometime this week. But I can tell you that if the story that we've been basically hearing from moderates that, look, we just can't do it in front of the No Kings rally, if that ends up not being true, then I think that the White House is going to have to look very closely, along with Russ Vought, at stronger measures that we could take to bring him to the table.
So there would be negotiations about what to do. We're running out of time before November 1st. There would be negotiations about what to do with the pandemic super subsidies for Obamacare.
Well, that again is an issue for the Senate. The Democrats passed that law. It was in an emergency for COVID, and they ended it now because it was such an expensive law. And so it's the Democrats' policy, it's the Democrats' shutdown, and it's the Schumer shutdown. And really, the Senate needs to figure it out.
If Democrats decide to vote yes now that the No Kings protest has passed, just because they wanted to project an image of strength as a party, that's all the proof you need that this shutdown was not about principle, and it definitely wasn't about the citizens. It was about performance and trying to show that they're willing to stand up to big bad Trump. Because they're desperate, so desperate that they'd rather watch this country spiral into chaos than see a single problem get solved if the solution comes from this president. That's how far gone the Democrat Party is. It's not about country anymore. It's about control, revenge, and refusing to admit that the man that they lost to is doing the job that they couldn't get done. But let me hear your thoughts. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this. And stay tuned for the next video, where Gavin Newsom's presidential hopes may be crumbling before they even got started, as a new enemy has become a major problem. Stick around for that. And as always, I'll see you next time.